This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America. Happy President's Day. Holiday racing across the country. Lots of good cards, good action. Do want to remind folks, speaking of that, at Gulfstream Park today, that Rainbow Six is adding up. There is a $966,000 carryover. It is a 20-cent bet. It is one of those jackpot type bets that it only pays out the full purse, the full handle here, if there's a single winner. Now, that said, once it gets up to these levels of close to $1 million, the consolation payoff is very good, and it is a 20-cent bet. So Rainbow Six at Gulfstream Park today, $960-some thousand. Down at Fairgrounds, the Black Gold 5, again, that's a jackpot bet, but it is a pick 5 type of a bet. Their purse or their carryover, $331,000. There's a pick 6 carryover at both Santa Anita and Aqueduct. Santa Anita's pick 6 carry today, $119,000. Aqueduct's $25,000. So there is plenty of action out there to be had. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining me as we kick off another week of Racing Across America. On this morning's show, a little later on, Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network will take a look back at some of the stakes action from the weekend. Also going to ask Mike about the Southwest today. I think there's some nice stakes action today at the various racetracks, but I think the Southwest is going to attract a particular amount of attention. Very nice 3-year-old event down there at Oaklawn. A little later on, Frank Vespi from the Racing Biz, speaking of nice stakes races. Unfortunately, the Fritchie and the Campbell from the weekend at Laurel were canceled when they lost racing on Saturday. But they have a couple of nice stakes races for their holiday card today, the Maryland Media and the General George. We'll take a look at those with Frank, Laurel Racing for this afternoon. And then we'll also take a look at Aqueduct this afternoon with Andy Serling a little later on. And I'm also going to ask Andy about the Fox Jockey Club's tour that was on Fox Sports this past weekend. He, of course, part of the team with Richard Migliori from NYRA, a couple of NYRA guys, part of the national sports commentating on the racing broadcast this past weekend. Just want to get his feel for how the team thought the inaugural event went last weekend when they were down at the Don on Sunday. All right, as noted, there were some cancellations over the past few days, including Aqueduct, which took the brunt of that storm that we got here in upstate New York as well. Aqueduct canceled over the weekend. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, this was kind of interesting. There was a column in the Racing Forum talking about the cancellation, and it noted that the cancellation on Sunday was the 7th full card of the Aqueduct Intertrack meet that was lost due to weather. A little historical perspective. We think this winter is particularly rough. Well, last winter, the 7 this year, only one more than last year, but even more interesting, one fewer than going back to 2010, 2011. So again, it seems like this is a pretty harsh winter with the very cold weather and getting hit most recently with some nice amounts of snow. And also, really at the beginning of winter, we had some snow as well. But historically speaking, this isn't really out of the norm for cancellations down in New York in the wintertime. 7 so far this year, just one more than last year and one less than 2010, 2011. The article also mentions parks canceling on Sunday, but notes in the article it's in large part to a case of equine herpes virus that was found on their backstretch that is kind of quarantined and limited horses shipping into parks. So the hits just keep on coming for parks this winter. They've gotten socked by the weather, but now a little bit of a quarantine down there as well. But Aqueduct, on the other hand, they have dug out of a weekend of snow, and we're going to be racing down at Aqueduct this afternoon. The Holly Hughes is their feature. Coming out of Saturday's El Camino Real, Tamarindo was the winner, but the first 2 finishers have put themselves firmly on the Kentucky Derby trail, and in fact, they're both headed to Kentucky for their next starts. Tamarindo comes out of a win on Saturday, the El Camino Real at Golden Gate. And again, it was a Derby points race. And Tamarindo comes out, and Jerry Hollendorfer says that one will be pointed for the Spiral Stakes over the synthetic at Turfway. And, of course, Golden Gate is a synthetic track as well. Tamarindo seems like maybe a synthetic specialist, so they'll head to the Spiral Stakes on March 22nd at Turfway. Dance with Fate, second-place finisher in the El Camino Real. The trainer says definitely heading to the Bluegrass. 60 days, pretty long time between starts, but we think he'll like that surface. And the third place finisher, which is the fairly lightly raced Enterprising for Tommy Proctor, and I believe went off the favorite over the weekend in the El Camino Real under Gary Stevens. Tommy Proctor said they haven't made any decision. Came out of the race good, but haven't made any decision on where to go next out with Enterprising. So top two, however, from the El Camino Real headed to various tracks in Kentucky for their next starts. Notable workout over the weekend, Princess of Sylmar got back on track down at Palm Meadows for Todd Pletcher. This was yesterday, worked 3 furlongs in 38.25. Just went nice and easy according to Pletcher. First little work back, just trying to get her back in a routine. They have said that they have not yet determined the actual debut race for the 2014 season for Princess of Sylmar, but certainly we're all looking forward to that given what she did last year as a 3-year-old. So Princess of Sylmar back on track, but early in the process of getting her race fit. Had a little bit of a workout yesterday at Palm Meadows. Also on the 3-year-old scene, General A-Rod had a work at Gulfstream. General A-Rod worked in a minute flat, 5 furlongs at Gulfstream yesterday. General A-Rod is working for the Fountain of Youth. They opted to skip the Holy Bull with that one, but Mike Maker says thought running back in the Holy Bull just be a little too much to run in all those big races, so they're aiming again for the Fountain of Youth next time out. Commissioner for Todd Pletcher also had a workout yesterday. That was up at Palm Meadows, 49.10. Fountain of Youth shaping up to be a pretty nice race. They're looking at horses like Top Billing, Almost Famous, Wildcat Red, and we'll have a better idea of what that field will be today because they plan to draw the Fountain of Youth as well as the Devona Dale and the Canadian Turf later today. So again, we'll know exactly what those nice fields for the weekend down at Gulfstream will be by the end of today. Nice weekend of racing as well at Fairgrounds, but there was some bad news. Not terribly bad news, but Larry Jones, a couple of his fillies will be missing the Rachel Alexandra on Saturday. The very nice Divine Beauty, who seems like a nice 3-year-old filly, and Fox Hill Farms Cassat, both of those under the care of Larry Jones, and Larry says neither one of them will make the weekend race. Divine Beauty, Larry Jones says, came out of her last work just a little puny. I've never quite heard that description before of a workout, but it says Larry decided to back off on her a little bit, but they didn't even really stop training. He just wasn't happy with her. So Divine Beauty will miss the upcoming Rachel Alexandra on the weekend. Cassat, they found a little bit of an issue, and that one probably go to the sidelines for a little bit for Fox Hill Farms. But again, the Larry Jones fillies not going to be able to make this weekend's Rachel Alexandra down at Fairgrounds. Do want to note couple of races, and we'll probably take a look at some of these as the week progresses, but yesterday at Oaklawn, talked a little bit about this race at the end of the week last week, the Bayakoa on Sunday yesterday. Don't Tell Sophia, who won this race last year. Last year won the Pippin, followed it up with a win in the Bayakoa before finishing second in the Azeri and third in the Apple Blossom, is on that same path this year for the older fillies and mares down at Oaklawn Park. Won the Pippin again this year and followed it up yesterday with a pretty convincing win as the 2-5 favorite in the Bayakoa. And again, according to the connections, they're going to stay on that same path, the Azeri, the Apple Blossom again this year. But Don't Tell Sophia, replicating her form from last year, putting both the Pippin and the Bayakoa wins on her resume again. Also wanted to note that another race we talked a little bit about at the end of last week and yesterday as well. Fourth race at Fairgrounds yesterday was notable because it was the career debut of Samantha Nicole, and This one is a full sister to 2009 Horse of the Year, Rachel Alexandra, Steve Asmussen, Stone Street Stables. So it's the same connections as Rachel Alexandra. Anticipated debut, went off as the 1-2 favorite. As I say, we'll pull up this race at some time this week to let you get a look at it. Samantha Nicole had some trouble at the start, banged herself on the gate, and then had a little brush with the horse that wound up to be the eventual winner. The eventual winner kind of recovered from a little bit of trouble at the start to get a lead late in the race and really open things up. And off of the soft fractions, 25, 51, 116, Samantha Nicole made a nice run late, but the other horse just had the jump on her, and on the slow fractions, it was a little too much to overcome. So Samantha Nicole, full sister to Rachel Alexandra. Steve Asmussen, Rosie Napravnik, Stone Street Stables. She finishes second in her career debut, and again, with a little bit of trouble and an excuse, probably a decent second place finish there for Samantha Nicole. We'll watch that one as they move forward. Also yesterday, out in Southern California, on the 3-year-old front, they ran the San Vicente Grade 2 event going 7 furlongs, and it was Kobe's back. We had John White on yesterday from Santa Anita, and he was very high on Kobe's back. Said he'd seen the horse in the couple of days prior to our discussion and thought the horse looked really good off of the prior form as well. Kobe's back was, as I say, really taking a lot of attention from John White. He thought this was certainly the horse to beat. Goes out for John Sadler and Joel Rosario, and gets it done pretty convincingly as the 8-5 favorite, but a slight 8-5 favorite. Also 8-5 was Cherubim, and that one winds up second in the race. So Kobe's back, gets it done yesterday. John Sadler made it clear, according to the racing form, in the winner's circle, you have to think Kentucky Derby is right on his radar screen, because he made it clear to Joel Rosario that he wanted a phone call after today's Southwest, because he may be heading with Kobe's back. He's got some other horses that he can split up a little bit. Obviously, he's got Candy Boy, who will be looking at the Santa Anita Derby, as Cristo, who's going to be looking at the upcoming San Felipe. So with Kobe's back, he may ship out of town and go to the Rebel at Oaklawn. Now, Joel Rosario this afternoon is going to be at Oaklawn in the Southwest on strong mandate. So again, in the winner's circle, John Sadler said, give me a call after the race today, indicating that Sadler looking at that Rebel on the path to potentially a Kentucky Derby, but already we're getting to the point where jockeys are going to have to be kind of making up their minds. Joel Rosario, nice win on yesterday with Kobe's back. Strong mandate this afternoon. Again, he may be put in a place where he will have to make a decision very, very early. All right, before we go to the break, just wanted to pull up a look at a couple of races here. Same horse. We talked about this horse yesterday with Gary West. And I want to go back and show you the stretch run of the Adirondack at Saratoga. A little bit of controversy as the 35 cent to the dollar favorite that day, 50 Shades of Gold, coming off of a couple of nice daylight wins to start the career. 50 Shades of Gold is in a white and blue silks and will be along the rail here. That is on the rail, 50 Shades of Gold. And again, 35 cent to the dollar favorite in the Adirondack. And there is some real trouble as they come down the lane. There's some juggling and knocking, and 50 Shades of Gold really will wind up getting rocked in here under Corey Lannery. The horse that eventually winds up under the finish line first, Who's in Town under Joel Rosario, will wind up being disqualified to fourth. 50 Shades of Gold wound up fourth under the line, but gets moved up to third. And as you see, I mean, really, this was a little bit controversial the day it was run, and folks were thinking Joel Rosario really shuts the hole here in a very physical way. And coming out of this race, 50 Shades of Gold was dinged up, had to go to the sidelines with some injuries, but 50 Shades of Gold came back on Saturday night at Sam Houston. As soon as the guys can rack that up, we'll show you the stretch run of that too. But 50 Shades of Gold came into that Adirondack, having won the career debut at Lone Star last May by 10 lengths, then went over to the debutante at Churchill Downs in June of last year and won that pretty convincingly as well. So this looked like a very nice 2-year-old filly. But after that, Adirondack again went to the sidelines. But here she is coming back on Saturday night. The number 4 horse, 50 Shades of Gold, 2-5 favorite in here, and gets it done by 2.5 lengths. Now, as Gary West said with us yesterday, Brett Calhoun picked this spot. It's a little stakes race. It was a $75,000 7-furlong stake at Sam Houston on Saturday. And Gary said Brett Calhoun specifically picked this race thinking, a little bit easier competition, just get her back in the game. But it's good to see that 50 Shades of Gold, who again, so early in the career was really promising, has come back from the injury and seems to be on the right track after winning the 2014 3-year-old debut with a nice little stakes victory Saturday night at Sam Houston. All right, we'll head to our first break. When we come back, it's going to be Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. A little later on, Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com, preview the action at Laurel for today, and then we'll wind things up with Andy Serling, a look at Aqueduct's action for this afternoon, as well as talking a little bit about the Fox broadcast from last weekend. All of that right after this.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB television network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at capitalotbbet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Shamrock Showdown on March 1st. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Mike, good morning. Oh, I'm back on. They caught me. They caught me drinking my water here. We're back with Racing Across America, and welcome back. I'm happy to welcome in Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. Good morning, Mike.
Seth, you have to love live television, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about.
It's like live radio. I know the feeling.
They caught me. I was in a little bit of a break, taking a little bit of a swig of water, but that's okay. Everybody takes a little water now and again. Mike, happy to have you on board. As always, like to update people if they want to go over to the Horse Racing Radio Network website, pick up some of the archived action. Who'd you have on board at the end of last week?
Yeah, fun show last week. We were at Coolmore's Ashford Stud to preview their stallion roster and talk about some of the outstanding champions they stand at stud there. But also got a chance to catch up with trainer Mark Cassie and talk to him about his Derby hopefuls at this point. We'll call them Derby hopefuls. And he previewed all of his Triple Crown nominees and talked about which ones he feels will give him the best shot on the first Saturday in May. He, of course, is going to be represented by Coastline in the Southwest Stakes later today, and he talked in depth about that horse and also about Conquest Titan, who we may or may not see in the Fountain of Youth next Saturday at Gulfstream.
Oh, well, he was a little bit dicey about that because that was interesting. The nice second-place finish in the Holy Bull kind of seemed to go against the track bias, which Cassie immediately recognized and said, yeah, maybe we'll go over to Fairgrounds. And then he seemed to reverse course and think, well, maybe we'll stay home. But he's still a little bit iffy about that?
Yeah, he's still bouncing back and forth, and you're right. He mentioned that during the interview as well, that he was really running against the bias, and that racetrack at Gulfstream and the way it's played this winter hasn't suited him at all. So he'd probably be better off going out of town, but he's holding that option open to run next Saturday. And he told me, he said, we don't have to go next Saturday. We have a good foundation with this horse. We can pick our spots, and if we have to call an audible and not go in the Fountain of Youth and go to Fairgrounds, we can do that as well. So he's very comfortable with picking his spots with this horse, and he feels like he's in a pretty good position with him.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what they choose and how the horse runs, because, again, at Gulfstream, running the way he did, certainly he's a horse that had to open some highs in that Holy Bull. All right, Mike, let's take a look at some of the stakes action from this past weekend, and then we will go out and get some of your ideas on the Southwest, because I think there's some nice racing across the country on this holiday card, but I think that Southwest is going to attract a lot of attention. But first, let's go back over the weekend. The MacDeer meetup at Gulfstream Park. Wanted to take a look at this race. Grade 2 event, $200,000 purse. And I love these turf marathons, mile and 3/8. And a horse that I thought was going to be very interesting and wound up to be the 7-5 favorite. Not a surprise. Our friend at West Point in their Twilight Eclipse for Tom Albertrani. We're going to watch the stretch run, and it will be the number 6 Twilight Eclipse getting the job done over the number 7 Amen Kitten. And Mike, this was a little bit interesting because this horse last year had run in this race, and it thrown in a little bit of a dud. Now that was over a good turf course. Followed that up, however, by winning the Pan American at Gulfstream in world record time. So that, I think, was what attracted the attention. You know, you could have looked at that race last year and maybe scratched your head a little bit, but you have to think the track condition played a little something into that, because I think, given the world record performance, I think we've defined that Twilight Eclipse has an affinity for this Gulfstream Park strip, but again, followed it up with a nice race on Saturday.
Yeah, he has an affinity for the strip, and he has a world of talent. And I know the folks at West Point, Terry Finley, and everybody associated with Twilight Eclipse, thinking that this is going to be his breakout year. And the way he ran on Saturday, I know he was the heavy favorite. I know he was supposed to win, and I know he got a perfect trip. And is there anybody better than riding that Gulfstream turf course than Jose Lezcano? He put him in a great position behind the early pace setters, and when he asked him to run, he was full of run. Even had a tough time pulling him up afterwards, and that's what really caught Tom Albertrani's eye. He said, did you see the way that this horse was just full of run after the finish? He could hardly pull him up, and the further they go, the better, and that could serve him well as he now points for a start on the Dubai World Cup program. That will be his next outing. But, you know, there's so many different storylines surrounding Twilight Eclipse that were kind of cool, even outside of the race. When you look at his purchase price, he is the true rags to riches story. He was purchased in 2010 at the Keeneland January sale for $1,000. $1,000 for this horse, and he's now gone on to earn over $700,000 in his career, and he's, of course, looking to add to that total moving on throughout 2014. But the person who purchased Twilight Eclipse was a gentleman by the name of John Langemeyer, and if folks haven't heard about it, this past week, February 9th, in Georgetown, Kentucky, which is just north of Lexington, 8 thoroughbreds were killed in a barn fire here, and those horses belong to John Langemeyer, and so it was a great story. Twilight Eclipse raced in honor of those 8 thoroughbreds that were killed, and you know, it would be great to see this horse just continue to do well throughout the rest of the year.
Oh, that is a nice story, no question about it. And I was standing with the, I was standing behind some of the West Point folks this past summer when the Sword Dancer was run up at Saratoga. They were watching the big screen on the bottom floor of the clubhouse. And I'll tell you, about mid-stretch, they were absolutely in joy, but of course that was the big day for Ken Ramsey and the Ramsey horse. Big Blue Kitten surged by late, and they wound up running second in that Grade 1. But I think they certainly, as you say, this is a horse that has now put some money in the bank, and now they're potentially looking at Dubai. And West Point, I tip my cap to them. There are a lot of nice partnerships out there, and a lot of nice partnerships that have done well. But this is you know, you look at a horse like this who has won some nice races and now potentially taking the partners over to Dubai, and you throw in horses they've had in the past like Awesome Gem. West Point's a nice little partnership organization.
Yeah, they really are. They do a tremendous job, and anybody that's looking to get involved in the game couldn't do much better than talking with Terry and the folks at West Point. They've had a lot of success, and, they want to be there in the big races on Saturday, and that's their goal. And if people want to participate in this game and they want to participate at a high level, it's a great way to do it, whether it's through West Point or any of the top partnerships out there.
Yeah, and again, this is just, even if it's not a West Point, it's a nice advertisement for the partnership concept, because that you can play at the top levels of the game for a more reasonable investment. So hats off to those folks. And again, it'll be fun if they do decide to go to Dubai with this one. Mike, let's go back to the weekend. Go over to Golden Gate. El Camino Real Derby. It was a Kentucky Derby points race, Grade 3 event, $200,000 purse. We're going to watch the stretch run. The number 4, Tamarindo, will get it done as the 2-to-1 second choice. Running second will be number 8, Dance with Fate, and number 5, Enterprising. Was the 6-to-5 favorite for Tommy Proctor, winds up running third. I think Enterprising is going to be interesting. Proctor came out of the race and said he doesn't know where he's going next, but he's fairly lightly raced, so Enterprising, even off the third place finish, I wouldn't give up on that one by any means. Tamarindo and Dance with Fate now saying they're both heading to different spots in Kentucky next time out, staying on the synthetics. But what were your thoughts coming out of the El Camino Real?
Well, I thought it was a big effort for Tamarindo. He was a horse that really had to prove that he could get it done in a big race like this, and he certainly did. I had said on my radio show Saturday morning that this was one of those races where we would start to separate some of the contenders from the pretenders, and that's about all you can do at this point on the Derby Trail. We're sitting here in the middle of February. It's hard to really put your finger on a horse that you can say, okay, this is the horse to beat on the first Saturday in May, because so much has yet to be determined over the coming months. But for Tamarindo, he had an awful lot to prove here, and I think he did it. I think he passed this test successfully. And maybe even more telling is the fact that Cash Call Futurity now really seems to be a very strong race. That was the race, of course, at Hollywood Park on December 14th. It was won by Eclipse champion Shared Belief. Candy Boy, who was second that day, came back and won. Now we have Tamarindo coming back to win as well. So a pretty good race there. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the winner of the San Vicente Stakes yesterday at Santa Anita also exiting that Cash Call. Kobe's back, so looking like a pretty good race out there.
And also, I think Tamarindo flattered California Chrome, too, coming out of that Cal Cup Derby where California Chrome won, Tamarindo ran second.
Yeah, I think so, too. And for Tamarindo, he's in a great position now because he moves up to number 4 on the Derby points list, so that should be, I would think, plenty of points to get him into the field of 20. Last year, the cutoff was very low, so he should be in pretty good position now moving forward. As for Enterprising, he was sent off at that short price. I'm wondering if maybe he's not just a little bit better on the grass than he is on dirt or synthetics. He had a pretty good trip on Saturday and didn't finish the way I was hoping that he would. So still lightly raced, still improving, but they might be better served keeping him on the turf.
Yeah, as I say, the top two, the connections have already said they're headed to Turfway for the Spiral and Keeneland for the Bluegrass. Tommy Proctor, though, hasn't said anything for Enterprising. Maybe that's in the back of his mind as well. And going to take a look now, shift our attention out to the Southwest for this afternoon. Mike, want to get some of your ideas here. Any help folks can get on this race? Talked a little bit about it yesterday. And I think this could be the deepest 3-year-old race we've had so far this year on the Derby Trail. The Holy Bull certainly was a nice race, but I think this one, with horses like Strong Mandate, who a lot of people are looking forward to seeing the return of, Paganol and Bourbonize, some horses that might have a future. You mentioned earlier Coastline from Marcassi. I think he's looking for a better performance than we saw in the Smarty Jones. The winner of the Smarty Jones, Tanzanite Cat. The winner of the Springboard Mile, Louis Flower. While we talk, though, Mike, we're going to watch the stretch run. Just wanted to remind people of the last race from Tapiture from Steve Asmussen and Winchell. That goes back to the Kentucky Jockey Club at the end of November. Tapiture is going to be the number 6 horse here, winning that one pretty easily. Hasn't been seen since that race. Strong Mandate also has been off a while, having raced last in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I think this is really intriguing, a very talented and deep field. I think you can go a number of different ways and make strong cases. What were your thoughts in the Southwest?
Yeah, highly contentious. It's very intriguing because you do have horses like Strong Mandate and Tapiture who are somewhat proven in terms of what they did in their 2-year-old season. And then you have other horses like Coastline, who is trying to prove that he belongs with this caliber of competition. Mark Cassey told me Saturday morning, we're going to find out if he's a boy or he's a man. And that's what they're trying to do at this time of the season with so many of their top 3-year-olds and so many of the trainers are. Tanzanite Cat, he has to prove that effort in the Smarty Jones wasn't a fluke and that he can repeat that type of effort. Louis Flower, same thing for him. Is he for real, or was that effort somewhat of a freaky effort and it was just a one-time thing? And then you have horses like Ride on Curlin, who is somewhat intriguing because he was impressive in winning his 3-year-old debut on January 12th in an allowance race. He's always had a lot of talent. Bill Gowan has been very high on him from the start, and we're going to see if he belongs with this caliber of competition as well.
Yeah, and again, Paganol is very interesting to me. I think has to step up on the numbers, but a horse making only the second start is always eligible to do that. But it's notable the horse that ran second to him that day, Street Strategy, came back to win very nicely. So a horse like Paganol and Bourbonize, again, who have something really to prove in here. Boy, this is just a really intriguing event. And it's one of those, if you handicap it correctly and cash a ticket, hats off to you. Just don't come back after the race and say, well, it was completely obvious, because I think you make a case, really a legitimate case, for about 8 or 9 of them in here.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything obvious about this race at all. A horse like Strong Mandate, to me, is he and Tapiture, I know they're going to be the 2 favorites in the race, but they're the horses that I want to see the most this afternoon, because I want to see them prove that they matured enough mentally and physically over the winter to take that next step, because they're going to need to. These other horses that we're talking about, Paganol and Tanzanite Cat, and those horses have a little bit of a recency edge on them, and they don't have the experience that those horses had at 2, but they're rapidly improving, lightly raced, and Strong Mandate and Tapiture are going to get everybody's best shot this afternoon. So I want to see how they matured, and they almost have to run a big race, in my opinion, because they're expected to. And if Strong Mandate throws in a clunker or Tapiture finishes a dull 4th or a dull 5th, we're going to be saying, well, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were.
Yeah, this one goes off at 5:09 Central Time, 6:09 on the East Coast. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Oaklawn Park about that time this afternoon on the holiday weekend, a holiday afternoon of races. This will be certainly one that will attract a lot of attention. Mike, as always, appreciate the visit this morning. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. We'll talk to you again next week.
You got it. We'll talk to you then. Thanks, Seth.
Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com. We'll talk a little Laurel Stakes action for this afternoon. Stay tuned.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com. Good morning, Frank.
Hey, Seth. Good to be with you.
And Frank, the game plan this morning was going to be a little discussion recapping Saturday stakes action at Laurel, plus a preview of today. But, of course, no racing at Laurel. You and I were talking during the break, and I said here in upstate New York, we got socked pretty good with the storm. But we were all on the cusp of it. On the coast down in that Maryland area, you guys were really in the thick of it. What was the weather like over the past few days?
Well, it was earlier in the week. We got a foot of snow, sort of the one evening into the morning. And then later that day, we got another few inches, which, as you know, in Maryland, that's probably 2 feet in Albany,
yeah.
The way we react to it. So it wasn't so much the weather on Saturday that kept them from racing. It was just that the track was so wet with all the snow and then the drying out or the melting. And I had talked to folks over at Laurel on Friday, and they said, geez, it's 50-50 if we're going to be able to run or not. And apparently it was the wrong side of the 50. But today it's cold but clear, so I understand the track is in okay condition, so hopefully everything comes off without a hitch.
Yeah, very good. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday. In fact, Jeff Carl and I were in here on the Handicappers Report, and with Aqueduct closed, we were thinking, gee, they probably could have dug out by now, but there are so many moving parts. You have to clear out horse paths and whatnot, and as you say, then just the fact of the weather, things don't dry out the way they do normally in springtime or summer. It's tough to maintain and keep things going when the extreme weather starts to hit like this. So again, hopefully everybody is shoveled out and ready to go for the holiday card. And there are a couple of nice stakes races today at Laurel. We'll preview a couple of those. And again, I do want to remind people, Frank runs theracingbiz.com. Nice website if you want to keep up with racing in the Mid-Atlantic. And Frank, is there anything recently on the Racing Biz you want to tout?
Well, one of the things that I should mention that's happening today is the Maryland Racing Media Association is giving out its Maryland-based Horse of the Year award today, and that's going to go, no great surprise here, that's going to go to Dance to Bristol, which, she was had a terrific 2013 and won a bunch of stakes, including 3 graded ones in New York, and really was kind of the best story in the Mid-Atlantic, too, I think, with her local connections kind of on the way up. So it was a neat story. So we'll be giving out that award today at Laurel. So that should be something fun. And I think that we've been doing a little bit in the last couple of weeks is we've been doing these Today in Racing History, which is kind of fun. And I think 2 days ago, Zippy Chippy lost the 14th race of his career. But a couple days before that, on Valentine's Day was the day in 1975 that several jockeys allegedly conspired to fix a race at Bowie and get themselves a big payoff, and 3 guys went to jail for that. So it was kind of an interesting story, an interesting look into the way things have been in the past.
I read the Zippy Chippy one, and it's fun to look back sometimes. The eyeglasses of history add some perspective to some of these stories now, because when you look back at that, as you say, a couple of days ago, that date in history was loss number 14 for Zippy Chippy, and I thought, certainly they couldn't have then been thinking, well, 86 more to go.
I know it is really funny when Richard, who's the guy who's been writing these, sent it to me, and I'm looking at it, and I look at the record, I say, wow, exactly right. He had a lot of losing still in front of him, and nobody knew that.
14 down, 86 more to go. All right, Frank, speaking of the Maryland Racing Media, that is the stake that kicks off a couple of nice stakes races today at Laurel. The Maryland Racing Media $100,000 purse, fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 1 1/8 miles. And I looked at this race, and I just really was kind of going back and forth and back and forth. I wound up pulling up some video to take a look at the maiden breaker, 2 races back for Lunar Surge. Goes out for George Weaver. This was over the Aqueduct Inner Track. And again, this was back on January 16th. We're going to see Lunar Surge, the number 1 horse, get up late for a gutsy win as the 7-5 favorite. That was a maiden breaker in career start number 6. And it was interesting to me that Weaver came back four days later in an allowance event and ran second. Ran second, by the way, to Bel Galante, who runs in the opener today at Aqueduct, so maybe a little barometer race there. But I found the quick comeback off of this nice maiden win interesting for Lunar Surge. But as I say, it's a short field, but I think it's a really interesting field in the Maryland racing media. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that, and you make a good point about Lunar Surge coming back on short rest like that, and now she's had a little bit of a longer break, and we'll see how that helps her. I mean, the issue I sort of have with her is, she's a horse that's been in the money all 7 of her starts, but only won one, yeah. And I don't know if I like 2-1 on a horse that has won for 7. A horse that I think is kind of interesting here is Malibu Red, who is 3-1, who's more of just kind of a hard knocker. She's won 5 out of 20, but she won her last by 7 lengths against Allowance Foes at Calder, and there's already been an XL winner from that race. And the interesting thing about this horse is Marty Wolfson has shipped to Laurel once in the last 5 years. That was to bring Miss Thing 6 here 4 years ago to win this exact race. And so he doesn't come here very often, and when he does, he has pretty good intentions. So I suspect he's here, thinking he's going to get the money.
Yeah, I talked to Dave Rodman on Thursday about the Saturday stakes, and he had one entered in one of those stakes, and I said essentially the same thing. Anytime Marty Wolfson ships, you have to pay attention.
Yeah, I think that's right. Then, obviously the other chalk here is I Like Candy, the Graham Motion horse who just came in second in Allowance Company and Aqueduct, has 2 wins over the strip. She looks like she's going to be a pretty nice horse. It's kind of an interesting group, as you say. It's not a very accomplished group, but there's a couple of these you go, well, this might be a horse that's turning into something here, and she could be one of those.
All right, let's look at the General George, because speaking of a horse that might turn into something, I pulled up some video from Smash and Grab back on January 4th, and it was just buyer figure-wise, it was a complete aberration. We're going to watch Smash and Grab, the number 1 horse, win pretty easily at 9-1 that day, but comes out of this race with a 101 buyer figure. 12-1 on the morning line. I just found this horse maybe a little bit interesting. Obviously, Linda Rice's Palace shipping in from New York is going to take a lot of attention, but it's a fun addition, I think, of the Grade 3 General George.
Yeah, it is, and I completely agree with you that Smash and Grab is an interesting horse here. I mean, a couple of things that are notable, I think. One is the field that he beat back on January 4th was a pretty good field. I mean, the horses that ran 2nd and 3rd are both stakes winners in their own right. He's a stakes winner in his own right. It's also, that race was the race before the Fire Plug, and the top 4 from the Fire Plug are in here. Smash and Grab, ran almost a full second faster than the Fire Plug ran. So, that was a legitimate effort on a day when you got a pretty good barometer race right after it. And he looks like he could be, he could be the speed in here. So I think he could make some noise in this race to me. But you're right. I mean, Palace is obviously going to take a lot of play. He has failed in his last 2 at odds on, so that's an issue. One notable thing here, Javert, who's the defending champ, is not going to be able to race because he's stuck at Parks.
Oh, right. Okay. All right, so we'll note that.
So that's a little unfortunate. Yeah, another kind of neat storyline here. I mean, this is actually an interesting race with a bunch of kind of interesting storylines. I mean, you've got 2 horses, Bandbox and Well Spelled, that are kind of second off really long layoffs here. And both of them had pretty useful returns. I mean, Well Spelled is a horse that beat Triniberg right before Triniberg won the Breeders' Cup Sprint a couple years ago. And Bandbox is a stake winner as a 2-year-old, has stake placed 3 times as a 3-year-old, and has been off a year and a half until his last race. So those are a couple of horses that, I'm going to be interested to see how they do here. Another one to look at, too, is Service for 10. All he does is run good races. And the neat thing of his story, that his trainer now is a guy named Mike WITHDRAWLS. Mike was the assistant for Damon Dillon-Vico for years. Mike's got, I think, 3 horses in his barn, and still he doesn't yet have a win as the trainer of record. So he'd be looking to get his first career win in a graded stakes, which would not be a bad way to start.
Nice, nice. All right, so there's some stories and some interesting horses in here. And since we both kind of like smash and grab, now we have to hope that 12-1 holds up because that's part of the attraction. But we'll see what happens.
Very much.
Yeah, we'll see what happens today. General George, Maryland Racing Media, a couple of nice stakes on the holiday card down at Laurel. Frank, as always, we appreciate the visit. And again, we'll tell people to go over and visit theracingbiz.com. Keep up with all the news for the Mid-Atlantic region. Thanks. We'll talk to you again.
It was my pleasure, Seth. Thank you.
All right. Frank Besby, again, theracingbiz.com. We'll take our last break. We will be joined by Andy Serling, New York Racing Association, and Fox Sports commentator now, right after this.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. We the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
We're back on Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Happy to be joined now by Andy Serling of the New York Racing Association and Fox Sports commentator. You get now to add that slash into the description, Andy. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm proud to add that slash. Thanks a lot.
You should be. And let's talk a little bit about that before we get into some of the racing action. Inaugural broadcast of the Jockey Club Tour on Fox last Sunday. I thought, and I wrote an email to the guys at the Jockey Club and said I thought it was a good inaugural effort. I thought it was very solid, very entertaining for the entire broadcast. And I also wrote, I think you guys at the racing gods were shining down. The Groupie Doll race was amazing. It was like a Hollywood scripted race. Then a big long shot, and then you have a budding superstar, plus a really nice performance by Will Take Charge, given the circumstances. So I think you had 3 great races to kick off. Seems like the buzz that I've heard over the past week has been all positive. Right after the broadcast, I'm wondering, did the team meet, and was everybody happy with the inaugural effort?
Yeah, no, everybody was very happy. I think relieved, too. You know, I mean, there's always a sense of relief getting through it. But, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of positive feelings. You know, obviously, every show that you do, you hope to fix things that you're not doing well and to make everything better. And you're always looking forward and trying to make things better. But I think we were all very happy with, in general, how things went in the show. You know, everybody working with everybody from the Jockey Club and Fox it was a great experience, you know, and the team is a lot of fun. And just working with Simon Bray, I mean, didn't really know Simon going into it other than seeing some of his work on TVG, but he was a pleasure to work with, and we had a lot of fun. So it was a very positive experience, and the feedback has been universally positive, which is nice. Obviously you feel good, but I also hope if people have complaints and things they'd like to see us do differently or better, that they share them, because the only way we're going to get better is if people give us that kind of feedback. And I like the idea that we came into this saying we're going to focus on horse racing, and it didn't change. I mean, we did a show about horse racing, and that's what I believe in, and I think it's been very positively received because of that.
Yeah, again, it seemed like the buzz that I've heard has been universally positive, and as you note, it was the inaugural effort, so these kind of things improve as time goes along, as people will make suggestions and say, let's see more of this or less of that. But I thought the first broadcast very entertaining start to finish. But now let's touch on, as we watch, we're going to pull up the stretch run here of the Don and see Lee get it done. Let's just talk a little bit about at least a couple of the races. First of all, what were your impressions of Lee and Will Take Charge? And second, how about that great performance by Groupie Doll?
Yeah, well, we can start with the Don and just say, I mean, obviously Lee has emerged for a superstar. I mean, I feel sort of bad for Al Stahl, because Al made the right move in switching this horse to the dirt for the Forgo, even though it seemed like a bit of a head scratcher, though he had won it the mud in an off the turf race, I believe, at Churchill Downs. But unfortunately, he caught the mud, and you feel like you wonder if he would have shown this beforehand, because given what he's done in his 2 races for Bill Mott, you wonder what he could have done in the dirt for Al, who does a very good job. But clearly, he is just like out of nowhere become a superstar of the scene, and this was a superstar type performance, a very, very fast race. I mean, he got away with a pace that was fair to the final time. I don't think it was particularly fast, but I don't think it was incredibly slow, and he just continued to run fast the entire race and ran a remarkably good race. But if you close your eyes and you take Lee out of the equation, you would have seen Will Take Charge emerge with a 9+ length win over the others, and people would have been saying he's a superstar, he's built on his 3-year-old year, he's even better, and he's the new man to hunt down. So I don't think that Will Take Charge lost anything in defeat. I think, if anything, he gained in defeat. And we've got at least 2, along with Mucho Macho Man, very exciting horses, and you're already talking about having Mucho Macho Man as well as Will Take Charge and Game on Dude meeting in the Big Cap, and some very potentially exciting races down the road, especially in our revamped Belmont Day, when potentially we could see some of these horses and others in the Met Mile.
Do you have any concern? I've mentioned it a couple of times. Any concern? Lee, now the 2 nice races were over Gulfstream. Some horses just kind of freak over that track. I'm saying I certainly think the potential is there, that he's very special, but I want to see one away from Gulfstream.
Well, you always want to see that, and I think that's a fair point. But I'm going to be surprised when he goes to another racetrack and he's a bum. He's just run too well in these races for me to disregard him. But obviously, I'm sure Bill Mott wants to get the answer to that question. There's probably no hurry with him, I got the impression. I mean, I know some people have said he might be playing for the Big Cap. I don't buy that, but I suppose it's possible. Got the impression Bill was thinking of taking a step back and waiting for a race like the Met in Whitney.
Yeah, certainly he mentioned the Whitney as being on the radar screen, and given that Wayne Lucas is typically up at Saratoga, you would have to think Will Take Charge too. So
dancing the dances.
Yeah, we could exactly. We could be seeing a very nice Saratoga with some of these handicap horses. And again, just want to get your thoughts. And I don't know, because it was tape broadcast or a tape delay on the broadcast, so you may not have been out in the crowd on the front side when the Groupie Doll race was run. But I just wonder, then going down the backstretch, did the air come out of the balloon? Because certainly you had to think, oh boy, how unfortunate she's going to go out like this.
No, I was alive with 3 other horses in the pick 3, so the air was filling my balloon as they were going down the backstretch. It was, as usual, when they hit the stretch, that my balloon deflated. But that being aside, to see a horse who's been as terrific as Groupie Doll has been over the last couple of seasons, I mean, she really went out the way a champion should. It was just an exceptional performance, and, every bit as good as many of the races that she's run. To sort of breaking slowly in some ways may have helped her, and then it kind of took her out of the morass. And circling the field, she's the consummate professional, and it was really a nice racing moment. And she had a big fan base down there that crowded around the winner's circle, and all good feelings around. And then you like to see that in horse racing, and she's certainly a horse that's engendered an enormous amount of goodwill.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's move on to some of the some thoughts for this afternoon's racing, and just a little update on the weather down there today.
It's cold.
Yeah, okay.
Probably colder in Albany. It's sunny out, so there's no threat of any precipitation today. We're supposed to maybe get a little more snow tomorrow. Thank God. It's been a couple days without it, but it's supposed to warm up at the end of the week, so things are looking good for the next week. We will be racing, I think, this coming week, but obviously it's been a tough week here, but we're thrilled that we're at least able to race today, and the weather is nice.
Yeah, holiday card, and on the holiday card, the Holly Hughes is the feature, state breds for $100,000 going 6 furlongs. I did Aqueduct a little bit earlier on the handicapping show. I just thought Married to Music was kind of obvious in here on the just a little bit of a horse for a course. Seems to have found a home on the inner track, although the Jacobson entry, I think, is going to be dangerous. Maybe even Mine Over Matter. But what were your thoughts on the Holly?
No, I thought it was a two-horse race between Married to Music and Mine Over Matter. Married to Music has been so sharp in his races that he's come out of the gate like a rocket. It'll be interesting to see because you have to think that David Jacobson is running not my first time an attempt to be aggressive with him, and how much he can test Married to Music will go a long way to whether or not he becomes vulnerable. He's the horse to beat, but Mine Over Matter will like any moist on the track if there is some, and his good races are good enough to win this. Whether or not he's going to get it today, we'll see. But they're the only two that I would be using it there.
All right, let's go out to the 7th race today. And I will be interested to hear your thoughts here because I took a little bit of a shot at it's a maiden special weight event, and I went with the first-time starter from Trombetta when no one's looking. Just the breeding there was a little bit interesting. By Street Boss and the Dam produced a sibling called Doing Great that won its first 2 starts, including a stake. So Ship Up off a couple of bullet works from Laurel for Trombetta just attracted me to the 4. What were your thoughts?
Well, I'm seeing the rider. I believe Carlos Marquez is listed to ride. A lot of people think that's a good sign. I thought this was an interesting race because I think the heavy favorite Magdalena Bay is a bit vulnerable here. I know Kieran has very good numbers getting first-time Lasix. It's more with turf horses, but it's worked in dirt. The thing is, they've been more horses that haven't had particularly good form showing, and I don't know how much improvement you're going to get from her. And I'm just not her biggest fan and thought she was vulnerable. I think your horse is dangerous when no one's looking, as well as the 7 Kill a Day, both firsters, and obviously you want to see what money they're going to get. Now, Kill a Day will take money just because Taylor Rice is riding, because somehow people think she's making horses run faster, which she's not. But I'm very interested in Pitch, the horse who finished 4th behind Magdalena Bay in her debut. If you watch that race, it's clear that Pitch needed a race. She's the only horse in the field to gain the ground, and she gained significant ground. She was not exactly like, really, whipped and driven to the end. They tried, but I think that this was a horse who clearly needed her first start, and she will step forward for Leah Giamatti a lot in her second start. She had a little bit of trouble at the start also.
Yeah, she's interesting. A little bit of breeding there, and that first race will darken the form a little bit. So I didn't use that one, but now that you're talking about it, I wish I...
I think if you're against Magdalena Bay, and I'm not saying she can't win, but I think that she's a little bit vulnerable, especially starting this pick 4. I want to use firsters in Pitch. I want to try to beat her.
Yeah, I got Magdalena Bay in the 3rd spot. I used Kill a Day in the 2nd, so I had the firsters up there too. All right, finally, got about a minute left, but let's take a look out at the 9th today. Allowance non-winners are one other than my shot in here. I went with the local owner, Roddy Valente. Cast a Doubt, made the successful move from Southern California. I think the stalking trip last time might be beneficial again today, so I went with Cast a Doubt. What were your thoughts?
Well, you're trying to make a sprinter stretch out effectively and asking it to rate in here. I don't see it happening, and I don't like Cast a Doubt at all. I don't think the start jumping and Cast a Doubt are likely to be stretching out effectively, and I think that Tismus, of all the speeds, is the one that I'll trust to go long and rate a little bit. But also, I think there's enough pace near that Idle American has a chance to run his good race. And if he can run his good race, he can win here. And with the speed in here, I'm going to use Tismus and Idle American. Thought this was an interesting race. I'm very dubious about Cast a Doubt getting the distance.
All right, sounds good. Andy, got to wrap things up, but we certainly appreciate the visit. And again, congratulations on the inaugural effort. Pass it along as well to Richie, because I thought both of the NYRA guys did very well on the Jockey Club Tour, and we're looking forward to the next effort, which is coming up. Dubai World Cup is the next broadcast, correct?
Yes, we will be doing the Dubai World Cup the last Saturday, that morning, last Saturday in March, and then 2 weeks later we'll be at Keeneland for the Bluegrass Stakes. And thanks for everything. I really appreciate it, and happy to come on anytime and love to be on.
All right, Andy, thanks again. Bye-bye. That'll wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Monday morning. Again, it's a holiday, and there's holiday racing across the country, really nice racing. I think the highlight that people will really focus on will be that Southwest down at Oaklawn, which our time, East Coast time, will go off about 10 after 6 or so. It'll be right here on the network. We'll wrap things up for today, but of course we'll be looking back at some of these holiday races as the week goes along. Kick things off today with a nice conversation. Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network, Frank Vespi from the RacingBiz.com, and Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association and Fox Sports now. All right, that wraps things up for Racing Across America. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. Handicappers Report is on a little bit earlier. This morning it was Anthony Mormino and I. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas. Cash some tickets this afternoon, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.